that really had some weight to them. So they're named after these characters who have come before them. And Cordelia, I think, is a perfect example of that. She's the youngest daughter in King Lear, and she's the youngest daughter in this family, and she was purposely given that name, and that really affects her mindset. Because I think, and if any of you have ever, I made a nickname change when I was younger. If any of you have ever gone through that, it kind of changes the way you view yourself. And then the other part of it is birth order, which is, so are you familiar with birth order theory? The idea that who you are, it is based on where you were born in the family. And I just thought that was fascinating, because when we were younger, my oldest sister was like this hyper-organized, super successful, maybe slightly bossy. And then my middle sister is super social, super charming, but always felt kind of lost and overlooked in a lot of ways and didn't know what her identity was. And then, of course, the beautiful, fabulous, brilliant, maybe slightly spoiled youngest. That would be me. And I was interested in the fact that as we grew older, we grew out of those roles. But when you're back together with your family, you are the same person you are when you were 12. I'm sorry, like, no matter how much you think you've changed, that dynamic comes back together. And I wanted to know why that was.
Right. It's awkward, isn't it?
It is awkward.
Uncomfortable old pair of clothing, a set of clothing to get back into.
Right. And there are times when I will try to break out of it, and I can't.
Yeah.
I can't.
It's weird.
Are there any psychologists in the audience? I think I may need to have a little conversation with you.
The other Eleanor Brown, by the way, is one of 3 sisters also.
I know. How crazy is that?
Your book is, among many other things, a love letter to books and the role that books play in our lives. Did you grow up in that kind of a house?
Yes, I did.
A book-obsessed house?
A book-obsessed house. A reading-obsessed house.
Excellent.
It's actually, so I've been totally freaking out over the fact that I was going to meet Ron Charles, like, for weeks now. Freaking out. And I met him and I was like, this is like meeting Justin Bieber. And I'm really not exaggerating. In my house, my mother, who was raised in the Washington, D.C. area, was a Washington Post subscriber. And my father, who was raised in New York, was a New York Times subscriber. And there was sort of this quiet war in the house until I think the moment was, and I think I may actually use this in the book, the New York Times started publishing color photographs. And my father was like, no more. I cannot take it. What was the question? Oh, wait, did I grow up in a family? Yeah. So I grew up in a family where reading is really important. My parents always taught me that the most important thing is always take a book with you wherever you go. Because, the wait at the post office is going to be longer and your flight is going to be delayed and you're going to need something to read. And they were the way that I learned about the world. They were the way that I got to live other lives and learn about other people. And I still define myself as a reader first and foremost before I ever define myself as a writer or a reviewer.
What did you read on the way out here to St. Louis, to D.C.?
St. Louis?
Sorry.
I'm actually, okay, I'll tell you what I'm reading right now, but this is totally out of character for me. I'm reading James Patterson.
Oh.
I was at a bookstore. I'm not a big mystery or a thriller reader, and I was at this bookstore the other night, One More Page Books, which is this adorable little independent in Arlington. And we're talking about James Patterson, and I said, I've never read a James Patterson book. And they said, oh, well, here. And so it's crazy. It's like there are people out there, you know what I mean, like prolific that you just never read. Do you know what I'm talking about? And so it's been a really interesting experience reading something totally different.
There are probably people out there who are writers who want to be published. How did you find the time, the motivation, and even, the nerve to write a novel?
Oh, Lord.
And you have to work, right? For a living.
Yeah. So I wrote the book when I was teaching 7th grade.
Wow.
Which was actually really nice because I would go, especially on vacations, I would write a lot and I would just kind of dive into that world. And I think I was a better teacher when I came back because I had been doing something totally different. And it continues to be that way. It's an escape for me. I think that ultimately it's just about putting the hours in front of the keyboard. If it's something, I think if I thought too much about it, I might not have done it because it's overwhelming. Being published is wonderful. It's also overwhelming and surprising in ways that I had never thought of. I'm glad I did it, but mostly I'm glad that I wrote it because I'd always wanted to, and it's like doing that thing that you always said that you wanted to do is amazing. It's just a great, great feeling. Like I did this thing.
And how did you get from writing the book to getting it published?
I have the least sexy publication story ever. I'm really sorry. I found an agent and we found a publisher. It's really
no wall of rejection letters.
Oh, I have a wall of rejection letters. I queried about 100 agents.
Okay.
And
good to hear.
yeah,
Good to hear.
yeah, and I sent them out in batches of sent queries out in batches of 30, which it's like dating. It's like if you go on 30 dates, getting turned down by one doesn't hurt so much. And I found an agent finally who I liked as well as she liked me. And we sent it out to publishers and waited a long time. Beth Hoffman, who's the author of Saving CC Honeycutt, are any of you familiar? She tells the story about how her book went out to publishers on Friday night, and on Monday morning, it went to auction, which means there were multiple publishers interested. And Beth is the nicest person in the world, and I really want to punch her in the face every time she tells that story. Mine did not take a weekend, but it finally found a home with Amy Einhorn Books, who are most famous for publishing The Help and The Postmistress, and so it was just the right place, you know?
That's great. That's great. And how has publishing this best-selling novel changed your life?
I'm way busier.
Yes.
I get to hang out with people like Ron Charles. Which is totally awesome. It's, in some ways it's no different. I think people think there's something magical about being an author. There kind of isn't, I'm still the same person. I'm just busier. The cool part is not only getting to meet other writers and other people in the publishing industry, but talking to readers, because when all of a sudden these people who've been living in your head, and then there are people coming up and talking to you about them, is both slightly disturbing and really awesome. It's super, super fun.
That's great. That's great. And when can we expect the next novel?
Not knock on wood, 2013. But if you haven't read the book yet, I would say read very slowly. And if you've read it already, read it again very slowly.
We'd be happy to take questions. Just stand up and I'll have to repeat the question. Yes.
That's okay.
So is the title of the book some kind of an editorial comment on your part about the sisters?
You repeat the question.
Okay, so the question is the title of the book, some kind of editorial comment. I think it's an editorial comment on all of us, because whose family is not weird? Really, honestly. It does have a deeper meaning. It is a reference to the Scottish play. So the three witches in the Scottish play, they call themselves the Weird Sisters. And to Shakespeare, weird didn't mean what it means to us now. It meant the three witches are really the three fates. And the book is a lot about fate and about these people who really think their lives should be one way and they should be going one direction. And then, like all of us, they find out it doesn't work out that way. So it works at both levels.
Yes, sir.
Oh, like software? Did I use any fancy software? No, I didn't. I used ye old Microsoft Word. Picture that with a little extra E on the end. For screenwriters, there are lots of programs because their formatting is much more specific. But when you send your manuscript into the publisher, they're going to do all that heavy lifting for you. So there's a great story actually about, oh God, what the hell's his name? Angela's Ashes. McCourt? Frank McCourt. Sent his letter into sent his manuscript into agents written on onion skin paper. Yeah,
and they love to deal with that.
I know they did. But they're very, very glad they transcribed it, are they not? Right? Sure. I'm sorry. Did you catch that?
Oh, do you have a Macbeth-like character in your play?
No. Do I have any characters? No. The oldest sister maybe is a little Lady Macbeth-ish in the way that all oldest siblings are. Do I have a lot of oldest siblings here? There's going to be a mob with torches coming after. Which is too bad. That is actually one of my favorite favorite plays. It is a great play. Lady Macbeth is a great part to play if you are an actress. There's just so much meat in it. But no, nobody specifically in there. I have a question for Ron Charles. Have you guys seen the Totally Hip video book reviews? Some of you are nodding. Okay, those of you who are not need to get thee to Google because they are hilarious. When are you going to do the next one?
We have not been able to find the time.
They must take forever.
Yeah, they do.
They're really, really complex and really well produced.
Too long. Well, thank you.
Okay. All right. Well, I know.
Thank you. Yes.
How do we feel about ebooks?
E-books.
You want to
go.
answer
You
that?
go.
I love them. I do. I make no bones about it, especially now that I travel so much. My e-reader is my favorite possession because I don't like paying those overage charges just for books. There are people who are very much tied, like they want the physical artifact, and I respect that. But anything that gets people reading, I am all for it. Fun tidbit. I have sold 2 to 3 times the number of ebooks that I have sold hardcover books of the Weird Sisters. Yeah, it's huge.
Wow. I have to take notes, in the margins for the post, so I never use them.
You can do that on an e-reader.
It's so awkward, though.
It is awkward. Yeah, it's not super fun. When I am reading stuff for research, I very often will read a hard copy for exactly that reason. But they'll get there. Oh God, my mom is going to ask a question.
This woman here in the front.
Can I say? Do I have to answer it? Okay, go. She's asking me about money.
Repeat that question.
So she's asking me what the number of ebooks, what the number of ebooks sold versus hardcover has on the impact of an author. Authors' royalties for ebooks are smaller because it's usually based on the cover price. So if it were hypothetically 10% of the cover price, you would make $2.50 off of a hardcover at $25, but you'd only make $1.20 off of an ebook. But you know what? That's okay.
You're probably selling more books anyhow, though.
Yeah, you are. I mean, it's an economy of scale partially. And also, again, like I was an English teacher. I'm a reader. I just want people to read, And if you, like there have been times when I have been reduced to reading the back of receipts. Do you know what I'm talking about? Like the return policy?
You didn't bring a book with you.
Because I didn't bring a book with me. I should have listened to my parents. I didn't bring a book with me. So it doesn't bother me. It doesn't bother me at all.
Nice.
Sure.
Yes, ma'am.
So are you still teaching?
Am I still teaching? No, I'm not. I am not writing full time. I do still have a day job. My boss is actually here. That's the person that I was so excited to see. Which is hard. But I think most writers, not all writers, but many writers do have day jobs because it is not incredibly lucrative. It wasn't incredibly lucrative even before ebooks. And also I find that I work better when I'm busy. Like if I have too much free time, I just get nothing done because it's like, woo, HGTV marathon, I'm all over that. And also I do, like I said before, I think we are better at things when we do other things, right? So we're better parents if we're also runners, and we are better accountants if we also do yoga. I just think we're better when we're testing our mind in different ways. So I'm not turning down becoming a full-time writer. So, if you'd like to buy, say, 10,000 more copies of the book, you'd be more than welcome to, but not there yet.
Movie plans?
Movie plans, it is out in Hollywood right now. It's apparently very difficult to sell female-driven movies because women, I know, it's interesting. Women will go see like an action movie, but men won't go see like a chick flick. Which has been proven wrong. We have Sex in the City and we have Fried Green Tomatoes, but I think those stand out because they are the exception rather than the rule. So I don't know. I have very mixed feelings about books being made into movies.
Until you get the check.
Until I get the check. Yeah, I don't have mixed feelings about that. Do you have a question, or are you telling us we got to cut it off?
We'll give you a sign for that.
Okay.
What about a play?
She said, what about a play? I went to a reading. Okay, so I scheduled this reading at a local library in Denver. Love libraries, all 4 of them. Dolly Madison Library in Virginia was where I, learned to love books. I scheduled this reading at a library in Denver on Mother's Day, which I did not realize until like 2 weeks ahead of time. It also happened to be a day about as beautiful as this one. We had 2 people come, which is fine. Like, we hung out, we had a good time. One of the people was the director of a theater in Denver who wanted to know if I would be interested in adapting the play for the stage. I know. I totally don't have time to do that, but I think that would be so fun. I did a lot of theater growing up, and I would just love to see that.
That'd be great.
Yeah, that would be super fun. Yes. Yes. It is an audiobook. Is it an audiobook, and how do you pick who reads it? It is an audiobook.
Did you read it?
I did not read it. I had little fantasy when I was writing it. I was like, oh, I should totally read this. If you've ever listened to an audiobook with a bad reader, you know what that's like. It can just ruin the story. So fortunately, they hired a professional. Her name is Kirsten Potter, and she is amazing. She reads it exactly the way that I would have read it, except she has much better hair. But they did actually come to me. I'm lucky. Amy Einhorn Books only publishes 10 to 12 titles a year, so I get consulted on. Like, I got consulted on the cover, for instance, which a lot of authors don't get to do. So they did come to me with 3 actresses, and they said, "Who do you like?" I didn't get to choose, but I did get to submit my opinion, as it were.
That's great. That's great. Anybody else?
Yes, Eleanor Brown.
Eleanor Brown.
Mm-hmm. 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 So the question is, what's the time frame of the book? Because it's not specific.
No.
And that was very purposeful on my part. It was partially because I didn't want to write a book with an expiration date. And this has actually been really interesting. So this James Patterson book that I'm reading is, I think, his first. So it was like, I don't know, early 90s maybe? Is anybody a big, James Patterson isn't here, is he? Okay. Early 90s, and I'm reading it, and I'm so interested in the cultural references, which really date it. And, I think about that when I would read, and I'd be like, my gosh, if you mention Paris Hilton in your book, right. I mean, even now, who's Paris Hilton? You know what I mean? Or Tiger Woods Affairs, or something like that. You're setting an expiration date on your book, and I didn't want to do that. The other reason I did it was because this is a family that lives totally in this academic ivory tower. And so to them, things like technology and pop culture are really far removed from their world. They wouldn't know, who Paris Hilton is or anything like this. So it was very purposeful on my part not to give it a specific time frame. There are enough references in there, by the way, that you can peg it vaguely within sort of a 15-year period. But it is kind of interesting, and there are things that I had to change. Like, I sent the book to a number of breast cancer survivors, an oncology nurse, oncology social worker, and the oncology nurse actually called me up and said, okay, we need to talk about drugs that are used for cancer treatment. Because if you're setting this in 1990, there's not going to be hair loss. If you're setting it now, the mother is absolutely going to lose her hair. And I thought that's really interesting. So that I did kind of have to make that change just to make it, I don't know, not ridiculous, but I definitely did not want to set it in a specific time period.
Anyone else?
Anyone else?
Yes.
Do I write in other genres? I have written everything. I have some very tragic 16-year-old poetry that I'd like to share with you now. No, I'm kidding. I think most writers do that. They play around with different things to try to find their voice. And I did exactly the same thing. So when I started out, I was going to write a novel. I'd written a lot of short fiction and a lot of essays. And I was like, oh, I'm going to write a novel. That'll be a lark. I'm going to write. Let me write a novel that'll be easy. So I started off with a romance novel. And let me say that if you have no respect for the romance genre, go home tonight and try to write one, because they are impossible. And then I was like, oh, I'll write a YA novel. That'll be easy, and it'll be short. That was also not easy. So I tried a whole bunch of different things until I finally just settled on the kind of stories I loved, which are people getting lost and finding their way again, and a style that felt really comfortable to me, and a voice that felt really comfortable to me. Because I think you can tell when people are trying to write something just to make it marketable, just to just to fit into a genre, and that's artificial, and I didn't want to do that. But yeah, I promise never to subject you to my poetry. I promise.
Now, Eleanor was willing to sign books, right?
Yes.
Right after this talk?
Yes.
Where is that?
I'll give more information on that.
Oh, there's a
Okay.
spiel.
Oh, yeah. Okay, great.
All right.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank
It's
you,
been
Ron
wonderful to
Charles.
talk to you. Very, very fun.
And you all need to go home and Google Totally Hip video review, or Totally Hip book video review. No, I want to get this right, Ron Charles. I'm trying to make you famous, Ron Charles.
The Totally Hip video book review.
Okay. Hilarious. Hilarious. Thank you so much.